kind of time that you deserve.
So the Obama promise that you can keep your own doctor might be true, but your own doctor might not be able to keep you.
Yeah, and really what it ends up in the situation is you may be able to keep your own doctor, but your doctor is not going to be someone who can really see you to the same level that you've gotten used to, which is why, frankly, you know, the way that I look at it, the effects that people are going to feel in terms of if you're raising a family, if you have a doctor that you've been going to for decades and that sort of thing, you're going to feel the impact of Obamacare in a really serious way. So
before we bring the table in, just tell us, our viewers, a couple of things they can do to prepare for this doctor exodus.
Sure. You know, a couple of things that you should do, particularly if you're older, is if you have an older doctor, if you have someone who's a baby boomer, who's thinking about retiring or who's getting closer to retirement age, find a young doctor and find them now, because the truth is that being a primary care physician is going to become less and less attractive under Obamacare. You'll be able to make a lot more money as a specialist, and you'll be able to avoid a lot of the hassle. The other thing that I would advise, particularly if you're someone who has chronic care problems or has sort of long-term issues, is to consider concierge medicine. Essentially, the way that works is you're paying a doctor directly for an annual fee to be able to see you and to give you priority in terms of answering your questions and that sort of thing. It actually doesn't cost a lot. There are a lot of services out there for this. It is something that will still survive under Obamacare. And one last thing that I'll warn people about, there's a lot of advice out there, some bad advice, I think, telling people that they should really invest in their HSAs and things of that nature because they've been so popular over the past few years. I personally have one. Lots of people have one. They're great.
Explain what that is for
a health savings account essentially allows you to pay for medical expenses tax-free. The problem is under Obamacare, that becomes less and less attractive. Lots of people pair their HSAs with high deductible accounts where you're essentially covered for catastrophic care if you get hit by a bus or if you get cancer. But those systems, those high deductible systems, are outlawed under Obamacare, and so come 2014, they won't be available anymore. Your HSA will is no longer allowed to pay for over-the-counter drugs and things of that nature. You have to get a prescription for everything, which means that for families who used to use their HSAs and their FSAs, frankly, to pay for special needs kids or for a lot of those over-the-counter things that come when cold and flu season comes around, that's just no longer something that'll be able to fill that. So my advice, find a younger doctor, consider concierge medicine, and frankly, down the road, once this stuff gets implemented, I'm a big fan of medical tourism. I think Costa Rica has some really good dental care.
Get my passport out.
It is kind of amazing that the two harbingers of the future we have after Barack Obama's reelection. One, of course, is a huge plunge in the stock market because the market has spoken. The other thing, though, is just how Obamacare now is spoken about with this. It's sort of sanguine the way people discuss the fact. And you talked about your plan. There's a difference between coverage and access. You're not going to be. You may be technically covered, but you're not going to be able to see the doctor you want to see. You may technically be allowed to get a procedure. You might have to wait a year. Sounds like some other countries you know about. The impact it's going to have on jobs, the raising costs it'll have. If you're a neurosurgeon, if you're an investment banker, what they have to cover you now with, the cost that's going to add to your employer. Maybe it doesn't matter, but if you're working in a restaurant, I mean, if you have a job where employee costs are obviously much more thin, the margins they can accept are much smaller, they're going to have to fire a lot of people. And this is, Ben and I talked to this before the segment, and I want to push him to answer this question because I think it's exactly true. I mean, we're talking about sort of the doc-pocalypse here. You're going to run out of doctors. This is designed to fail, isn't it? This is designed to fail. This is going to roll out over the next 4 years, and at the end of this, we are going to be where?
The bias that people have, the assumption that they have when legislation gets passed like this is that it's supposed to work. This was never supposed to work. This was supposed to be something that would collapse under its own weight and set up a situation where the
single payer.
It's supposed to make the DMV. It's supposed to make the DMV look efficient and good by comparison, such that people beg for single payer in 4 years when there's another candidate running who will be held responsible for it. It's amazing.
Dovetails into the question that I wanted to ask you that. Our previous conversation was about the fiscal cliff, and I've been reading that under Obamacare, people who make 4 times the poverty rate, which is $90,000 a year, families, could get subsidies to pay for their health insurance. And now legislators are looking at this saying, we can't afford that. We've got a fiscal cliff. We're going to take money out of Obamacare to pay off the fiscal cliff. Which doesn't that collapse Obamacare?
The thing to think about when it comes to that, by the way, is that we've had these entitlements. We've talked all along about the entitlements for people at the low end of the spectrum, all sorts of things like that. Obamacare is meant to create a middle-class entitlement system, one that will continually subsidize the purchase of insurance and that involves you essentially getting a check from the government in order to buy your health insurance. It's one more way to have that hold on your life. The thing that I think...
The families who make $90,000 a year are getting close to President Obama's description of the rich.
I mean, the national health services have shifted entirely politics in European countries specifically because of this. Once you turn all this stuff on, once people start getting all this from the government, they become dependent on it, and they're reliable voters in one direction.
But if I could give one piece of hope for you, Buck, it's this.
I'm listening.
This is a system that's not designed to work, but the problem is right now the Obama administration is stuck with implementing it. They have to implement it over the next 2-3 years, and this is something that I think is going to have a profound effect on the way that people think about Obamacare. If this is something that they believe in, that they believe is going to work, then 2 years from now we'll see numbers that say most people like Obamacare. They like it. They think they want it to stay. My suspicion is that this is a system that's going to fail, and it's going to fail more rapidly than they think it is.